I see people grouped in two different camps. The learner text preferers, those who prefer learner text, like such as graded readers, and then those who prefer native text. And in this video, I compared graded readers and native books for Spanish learners, and I will give you a simple three-question test that will help you to pick the right book today, and a lot of plan to mix both. My name is Walter Freiberg. I'm also known as Paguardit. I'm the author of the Spanish novel series. I sold over 150,000 copies on Amazon, and I'm also a life and language coach supporting people who are creating their future life in 5 different languages. So today we are going to see how this thing of graded readers versus authentic books plays out for learners. And we are going to focus on especially levels around A2 to B2. And this video is great for those who are bored of using only children's books in Spanish or who think that they're limited by their options and that there's not much to choose from. So let's start with some quick definitions on to get on the same page. When I'm talking about graded readers, I'm speaking about books who were crafted and designed with the learners in mind. These come at different levels. There are some graded readers for A1 level, for total beginners. There's those for A2, B1, B2, and so on. These books tend to have specific criteria in terms of what makes that a B1 or an A2. Can be in terms of the verb tenses, the length, the length of the chapter, of the sentence, of the book. I have a specific criteria for the Spanish novels. Other publishers and authors have other criteria. So those are graded novels and graded books, graded readers in general. Then we have the native books, books for natives. Those who weren't written with learners in mind. So they can be uncompromising in the sense that they don't have an intention to teach the language. And here we have from books from children's book to young adult books to adult fiction and nonfiction. That's anything that's been written for native readers from all ages. So this is what we are dealing with in this video. Am I picking graded readers? So that's books written for students or books written for native speakers. And there are three questions that you can use to make this decision easier. And the first is around comprehension, the second around motivation, and the third about ambiguity. What's your tolerance for ambiguity? The first criteria to pick one or the other is consider the comprehension level. Can you follow at least 70 or 80% of what's going on without having to constantly look up new words and looking up for meanings? So that's something that you might want to consider. How's your comprehension at a general level? The second is motivation. And this sometimes can trump difficulty. When a book really motivates you and you really look forward to reading it and you're excited about the topic or the author, that that might make it a better choice, even if it's too hard for this moment. So, am I really excited about this book, this what that I'm about to read? So that's the second criteria, motivation. And the third is ambiguity, my tolerance for ambiguity. And really, it's not a requirement to be able to understand every single sentence that we are reading. And there's people who feel more or less at ease with that. So that's something you want to consider. And when thinking of these three elements, comprehension, motivation, and ambiguity, so how do you feel about that you don't understand, regardless of how much or how little is that? If your answer is a strong yes to two of this, you can proceed with that. Let's say that I feel really motivated and I can understand most of that, I go ahead. Or another version would be I feel very motivated to read this and I can't tolerate the ambiguity. Maybe I understand less than 70%, but I'm fine and I can deal with that. In that case, you might want to give that a try, even if it's book for a level that it's more advanced than the level you are at right now. Um, so those are the criteria that you might want to consider. And if two of these three are yes, you might want to proceed. Now, the question is, when would be a better choice to pick a greater reader? And I would say that typically when we're just getting started, A1 to B1, that can be a good moment to start with greater readers, with simple readings. And you really need to harvest your first wins. You want to feel comfortable in the language. You want to develop some self-esteem in the language. And you want to really create your first enjoyable experiences in the language. So that's why typically I recommend using greater readers when you're just getting started. Some people prefer to read, some people prefer to listen to the audios. Um, and the idea here is not to overwhelm yourself with constant lookups or feeling like you're very lost in what's going on. So um, there are ways to work around this. Even sometimes people prefer to have dictionaries handy in digital editions. That's one of the reasons people prefer, some people prefer ebooks instead of paperbacks or instead of audiobooks. And if that's you, you may want to consider getting a Kindle edition or PDF or EPUB. And the Spanish novels are available in digital formats, so you might want to give those a try. Now, when we are talking about native books, if you're above B1, B2, you might consider turning to native books. You can continue, of course, with creative readers, and I wrote a series that goes all the way to C2. So A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And there's people who, when they reach a B1 or B2 level comprehension, they start getting in contact with books for natives. Um, and if there's a specific style that you really like, you like detective stories, or I don't know, you like romance, and you really enjoy that, maybe you can start trying your first books, maybe for young teenagers, in Spanish. And that might be a great choice. So some people use young adult stories or novels. You can use short stories, you can use graphic novels, and most especially translations of books you already read and that you enjoyed in the past. And if you ask me what you might want to be careful with, that would be, don't settle for children's books if that really bores you and if you don't want to read them. Many people think that they have to go through children's books, and that might make all the process demotivating and discouraging, and they get bored and they give up on the language. So don't fall for that. And the same is to, I would say this something similar for those of you who think that they have to try native books very early in your journey. And if that feels daunting or intimidating, don't do it. You can You can try something simpler. Graded books, graded readers. You can try books for preteens, young adults. There are many options available. You don't have to go for the classics, Quixote, etc. in Spanish. Um, and one idea is to use both, to combine graded readers and authentic content, native books. So you can try something like a warm up with a graded reader. You can try reading for 10, 15 minutes, and then you can switch to a native book. So the idea is to gain some momentum and gain some mental fortitude to approach more difficult books. So that's something you can do. And in general terms, when speaking about comprehension, if you start noticing that you're getting lost or that you stop enjoying the book, the content, a couple of days in a row, or you are reading and you're doing session after session and it's not enjoyable, you're totally lost. You don't know, you don't have the slightest idea of what's going on. That might be a sign that you want to try something less challenging. So that would be kind with yourself. Um, what else? Some practical tactics, some practical ideas that you can use, as I said, using digital editions and pop-up dictionaries. And um, there are many websites and apps these days that let you input or use articles or PDFs or other types of text, and then you can do things with that. You can export lists if that's what you enjoy doing, and you use some sort of SRS system. Um, what else? If you have audio versions available, I think that it's a good idea to play them. And there are different ways in which you can experiment with that. You can listen first and then reading, and then read the text version. You can also read as you listen to. You can listen first, read inside, and then read out loud if you want to practice some pronunciation. And then in terms of preferences, I'm a fan of using ChatGPT and AI to get in recommendations. It works great when you give it some examples, books you have enjoyed, or if you have a few examples of books that you really liked, even in your first language, it might give you options and good recommendations in Spanish. And you can also use difficulty level, um, and you can go by genres and interests or by certain types of authors. Another idea is to just ask native speakers for recommendations. That's also wonderful, and it's a great conversation starter. You can ask your teachers if you have teachers or tutors. You can ask your language exchanges, friends, and Spanish-speaking friends. You can join a book club, and where you will find typically many book funds. And if you are in such a space, make sure to use that. Get some accountability. Share what are you reading, what are you enjoying, what are your recommendations. Ask for recommendations. Share your recommendations and ask for recommendations. That's wonderful and that's valuable for other readers as well. And remember that you don't have to pick one and do that for the rest of your life. You can pick one thing. If you, let's say you want to give some time to try the graded readers approach. That can be temporary. It's not that you are going to read that for the rest of your life. You can start with the graded readers and then you can continue with books for natives. You can mix them up. You get to create your own path. So share in the comments, what are you doing right now? What's been your experience when you try challenging yourself for more challenging content? And if you're looking for a space to connect with other readers, check below in the description the Spanish Novels Club. There's a friendly space to learn with other book fans who are looking to upgrade their Spanish skills. See you in the next one.